Recording in progress.
Namaste to all the participants from all over the globe. On behalf of India Pulse and Grains Association, a very warm welcome to all of you present today on IPGA Knowledge Series webinar jointly with USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council on outlook of KHARIF Pulse Crop Production 2022 and USA Crop Update. As you are aware, IPGA is an association which works for betterment of trade practice and trade participants. Today, we have a line of esteemed speakers who are doing great in their respective domain, and they will share with us. I'm sure by the end of this webinar, we will be more informed and knowledgeable than what we are today, right now. Before we begin with the speakers, I would like to invite Mr. Bimal Kothari, Chairman IPGA, under whose chairmanship we are continuously inspired to improve, to give his opening remarks for the webinar. Please unmute your line, Mr. Kothari, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Lata, for inviting me. Thank you, friends of the global pulses, trade and industry in different geographies, including the United States. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. In my capacity as the chairman of India Pulses and Grains Association, popularly known as IPGA, I extend a hearty welcome to each one of you. For the Indian pulses sector, we at IPGA have set for ourselves a vision and a specific transformational agenda that we hope to pursue single-mindedly. For this, IPGA is working closely with the policymakers in the government. We provide policy inputs and forward guidance about markets in the most objective and unbiased manner. For pulses, the Indian government is keen to boost domestic production year on year. Strategies for sustaining self-sufficiency in the pulses sector are in place. They cover closing the yield gaps, area expansion, and productivity enhancement. Friends, IPGA's vision is to make Indian pulses and grains industry and trade globally competitive, and in doing so, help advance India's food and nutritional security. India takes the honors of assuming a leadership and play a more proactive role in the global domain to foster healthy relations among Indian market participants and between India and all associates overseas. Ladies and gentlemen, India's IPGA started the IPGA Knowledge Series webinars during the pandemic in July 2020 to connect with our global stakeholders. These webinars are hosted with eminent domain experts from the government, market, and industry to discuss and explore the topic of critical interest to the pulses sector in India and the world at large. Through this initiative, IPGA has become a knowledge hub and global think tank for the pulses sector. Given the tremendous response to the IPGA knowledge series, the webinars have become very successful. Today, we are co-hosting the webinar with US Dry Peas and Lentils Council on Kharif Pulses Production 2022 and US Pulses Crop 2022. The webinar will have a focused discussion covering key aspects like Kharif pulses sowing and expected production, impact of weather and monsoon this season, demand and supply, as well as price outlook for Kharif pulses, urad, moong, tuar in India. Further, we are going to have the expert panelists from United States of America, from US Dry Peas and Lentils Council to give us the in-depth insight on the pulses, US pulses production of the year 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, over 350 participants across many countries are attending this webinar. As we all know that Kharif pulses cover about 40% of India's total pulses production. The monsoon has a major role in the farmer's perspective around sowing of Kharif pulses. The government, though the government has good quantity of stock from the Rabi season from the last year as well as the current year, even though the monsoon has been delayed, we have witnessed a more proactive monsoon in the last 2 months, July and August, which has increased the sowing as well as the production, and which will eventually maintain the price stability and lesser dependence on the imports. However, as per the data released by the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, we understand that the Kharif production vis-a-vis last year is lagging behind about 6%. Friends, this evening, we are privileged to be joined by our esteemed panelists, both from the government as well as the trade. We are honored to be joined by Sri Rohit Kumar Singh, Secretary, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Government of India, as the keynote speaker, who shall provide an overview on Kharif pulses production, highlight government's data, as well as the perspective and set the overall tone for this webinar. We are also glad to have Mr. Jeff Rumney, Vice President Marketing, US Dry Peas and Lentils Council, Mr. Rahul Chauhan from iGrain, Mr. Sachin Khurana, again from US Dry Peas and Lentils Council, Mr. Pritesh Nandu, Mr. Ritesh Mittal, and Mr. Lalit Bangar as our esteemed panelists. I believe this webinar is going to be very insightful and will provide in-depth information covering key aspects of the trade and how the Kharif production is expected to pan out. Further, we will also have in-depth knowledge about and information about the production of US pulses for the year 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I would like to make an important announcement. We are going to host the 6th edition of our highly successful key event, the Pulses Conclave, which is a biennial event, and as well as the largest event in the world in the pulses sector. The Pulses Conclave will be held on 16 to 18 February 2023 in the financial capital of India, the vibrant city of Mumbai. The key agenda of the Pulses Conclave would be the sustainability, which is the biggest challenge today before our trade industry in the pulses sector. I am sure that it will be fantastic, impactful, and knowledge-enriching event for all those in the world of pulses. So let me conclude by saying that we at IPGA, we are excited about India's growth story and will be a part of it. Our attempt would be to build global competitiveness in this business. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kothari. It is always a pleasure to listen to you. Next, I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Shri Rohit Kumar Singh Ji, Secretary, Department of Consumer Affairs, Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. He would be giving the keynote speech government perspective on outlook of Kharif pulse crop production 2022. You can please unmute your line and go ahead, Mr. Rohit Kumar Singh ji.
Namaste, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank IPGA for giving this opportunity and inviting me here to present the government's point of view on this whole subject. Uh, if you see how government handles pulses, you will realize that it's a very complex dynamic because we have the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare on one side, which is interested in the interest of the farmer, if I may use the word, that they should be getting adequate prices for their produce. Whereas I, as Secretary of Ministry of Consumer Affairs, my main task is to ensure that pulses and other essential commodities are available to the Indian consumer at affordable prices all throughout the year. So on one hand, there is the production, and on the other hand, there is the issue of making it available at affordable prices. Sometimes there can be a conflict in the two, and that is why we have a mechanism in place where every Wednesday, all four of our four secretaries, the Secretary of Food, the Secretary of Consumer Affairs, the Secretary of Commerce, because we need inputs in terms of import and export policies, and the Secretary of Agriculture. We sit every Wednesday at 5 p.m. and we discuss the situation in the field, both in terms of availability and prices. And then we, if required, decide on the interventions that should be undertaken to keep the prices under control. Everybody knows pulses and onions in India are very emotional issues in addition to issues of importance in terms of the consumption. Especially pulses, we are the largest producer and consumer of pulses in the world. I'm not, this gathering probably knows it better than me that the production is about 25 to 26 million tons every year, while the consumption is a little ahead of 27, 28 million tons, depending on the year and how the economy is doing. We've also seen that the consumption is also increasing as the poverty levels reduce in the country, and people, are looking, especially the vegetarian part of the population is looking at high protein diet. And so the consumption of pulses is also increasing. We had a very interesting conversation with Mr. Kothari as to how to improve the availability of proteins to the economically disadvantaged sections of the society in India. And we're working on a joint paper to maybe we'll take it up for higher level discussions in that and decision on that. So if you see pulses, there are five major pulses, and I think 50% of consumption in India is of gram, which is locally called chana. And then there is tur and urad and moong and lentils, which is locally called masoor, which is about evenly distributed to about 10% each, give or take a few in terms of percentages. Now, the issue today is the outlook on Kharif pulses, and I think Mr. Kothari mentioned some numbers. Uh, all over the world, we have seen that climate conditions have been very unpredictable. And I was in Geneva last month, and believe me, it was hot. It was hotter than Delhi, and you could not go out at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, without adequate protection. So Europe is seeing an unprecedented heat wave. US is also having its own problems, both on the West Coast and otherwise. And India is also facing the rainfall pattern, which used to be more or less uniform in terms of this period of monsoon. This has also been erratic. So some areas have seen excessive rainfalls, some areas have seen deficit. So if you do an average, it looks that things are normal, but things are not normal because there are pockets of production spread across the country. And if there is an excess and deficit in those regions, then it upsets the apple cart, to say. For example, in terms of rice production, I know rice is not the subject today. Our main rice producing areas in the eastern part of the country have not had, they have had a deficit of 19%, 20% over the, if you compare to the average. And some other areas have had good rainfall. So we're going to see challenges in rice production also. And similar is the case of Kharif pulses. If you see the share of Kharif pulses, I think Mr. Kothari alluded to this number, that the share of Kharif pulses in overall has reduced from 37% to 31%, which is not a good sign. And if you see the outlook for this year, in terms of coverage of area, Tour has shown a decline of about 6 to 7%. Urad has shown a decline of 5%, and Moong has shown a decline of 4%. We must also keep in mind that Tour is a long-term crop, while the other two are relatively small term. So the dynamic behind is also different. But having said that, we also are open to, if you don't have enough and adequate domestic production, we keep our borders open for facilitating imports from overseas markets. And this year, IPGA would agree with me that we have had a comparatively stable import regime in terms of pulses. Earlier, uh, not to criticize, but earlier the decisions were for 3 months and 6 months. But when went this year to the decision makers, we said if we produce 26 million tons and if we consume 227 plus million tons, then obviously till the production reaches that level, and to use the local term, we become Atmanirbhar in terms of pulses, we have to import. I mean, that is a reality that the country has to accept. And if there is a requirement of import, then why have an ad hoc mechanism of import policy? So we decided that, because in some countries, the farmer is growing this particular pulse only for consumption. The majority of it for consumption is India. So I think we should give the right signals to that farmer so that there is no there is no risk being unnecessarily being built into the pricing of the entire thing, the whole dynamic of import, export, and pricing. So I think as the markets tell us, that has really helped in managing the price levels. And the import is easy. In fact, Tuar and Urad are under the free import regime. So although this month and the coming months are high demand periods in India, and since the outlook is not excellent this year, uh, we are expecting that the seamless flow of imports will help us ease the situation in terms of pricing. But in addition to this, I also want to focus on something else which sometimes we miss and where we are taking the help of the industry. And I must compliment IPGA for actively working with us and always supporting us in terms of their version of what intervention will work and what will not work, and providing us with good quality data, because we also have the government data, but sometimes we need to counter check with the other realities in terms of the other data. So the point which I was mentioning is, India, unlike maybe other geographies, has an issue with post-harvest losses, and the entire chain from from the farm just after the produce is ready to how it is transported to the primary markets and to the next market, and then the whole transportation till it reaches the final consumer. I think there are efficiencies that require to be built into this chain, and that will probably save us and give us better availability without unnecessarily depending on too much imports. Uh, there's also the issue of efficiency in conversion, the milling efficiency, and the local term, I don't know the term in other countries, outturn ratio, and how by introducing technological interventions or other process interventions, we can improve the efficacy of conversion, which to us results in the overall improvement in the availability. So we are working with IPGA on that, and I have spoken to the higher ups in the cabinet, and if we come up with a good proposal on that, and if we see that this is going to benefit the availability, then the government is willing to stick their neck out and support the interventions uh, whole hog. So I am waiting for the final inputs from IPGA, which I hope will be available by next week, and then we produce a policy paper and take it to the right forum for decision. And the interventions could be in terms of subsidizing, the technological interventions, or even we can talk to the banks on interest in terms of, I mean, something like the PLI, which is being used in the conventional industry, which is the productivity linked incentives. So we can use that, and I'm sure I can see that there is a possibility that by the right kind of interventions, we can improve a little bit of the conversion efficiency and thereby improving the ultimate availability. Why I'm confident? I'm doing it in onions, and onions, the post-harvest losses. So we, at the moment, as we speak, the country is going through what is called a grand challenge, which is like a hackathon. And we have invited all the researchers and the institutions like IITs and everyone who's involved in this to give us ideas, including the radiation processing and anything that helps. Because onions, there's only three parameters: the moisture, the temperature, and the air circulation. And by having appropriate mechanisms and interventions focusing on these three parameters, maybe we can improve the availability, because at the moment the losses are of the order of 30% in terms of post-harvest losses. So similarly, if we can improve in pulses, it will help us a lot. So while, just to conclude, while the outlook may not be as bright as we would have liked it to be, there is reduction, as I said, of 6, 5, and 4% respectively in Tuar, Urad, and Moong in terms of sowing. The rains, the pattern of rains has been erratic, and their distribution across various sub-geographies within India has not been very even. So we do foresee that it might pose a little challenge. However, having said that, because of the easing in our import regime, the policy regime that facilitates import and export, I hope that adequate protection in other geographies will help us overcome this crisis, and the prices in this high demand season for next 3, 4 months will not be excessively high. In terms of lentils, I'm keeping a close track on what is happening in Canada and Australia. And I read the report 2 days back. The Canadian forecast is very good. They are looking at 29 lakh tons, which is like 2.9 million tons of production uh, of both yellow and red combined, which is a good sign. And we had issues in lentils last year because of the Canadian production falling to 15 lakh tons. So hopefully the situation on lentils will be better this year, and we will not have any surprises in store for us. So once again, I want to compliment IPGA for having, continuously being very closely associated with us. We are also open to new ideas, discussions, and we always want to talk to the industry. And we don't go to decision making with this that government knows all attitude. I don't believe in that. So we constantly engage with IPGA and others in the industry before we take a decision in terms of how to manage the situation. So thank you, sir, Mr. Kothari, for inviting me. And government is always willing to work with the industry, because in the end, I think we want to have a win-win proposition that the consumers of this country do not unnecessarily suffer by way of higher prices. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Rohit Kumar Singh ji, for your insightful update. This is very helpful. We always look forward to your support and cooperation.
Yes,
Dear
Lata, before you proceed further, I will just like to make a comment. Thank you, sir, for your really insightful speech and your kind words and about our cooperation with the government. As we ensure that we would like to work with the government and for the welfare of this business, for the welfare of the farmers, the trade and industry, and to achieve our honorable Prime Minister's vision of doubling the farmers' income by adding value to the products. So we are working very sincerely and very hard in this side in this area, and we will be able to submit the document as promised. I think in next 1 week or so, and also as you just mentioned about the lentils, I'll like to make a point here that we are presently importing the lentils from Canada and Australia, but US is also one of the producers. So in our earlier representations to the government, we have requested that since US is also one of the important producer of the lentils and exporter of the lentils, and presently we are not in a position to import these lentils from United States because of the duty structure imposed on the US lentils. So, and since today US Dry Peas and Lentils Councils, we are co-hosting this webinar with them. So I will like to make a request to the government through you that kindly look into since it is a since you know the pulses are essential commodity and a staple food for our for us, and we at the moment our production is lagging behind and we need to import. So my request is to that if at least in case of lentils, if this the duty structure may be made at par with the other origins, that will be really helpful for the trade. And it will also, as I say, as I have been continuing saying, that will stabilize the prices. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for so much.
Thank you, sir.
Over to Ms. Lata.
Yeah, thank you. Dear participants, please post your questions in the question box. We'll have the question and answer session after the presentation. So our next speaker for the day is Mr. Rahul Chauhan, Director, iGrain India, Delhi. iGrain India is an agri-commodity research center providing daily market news, production, supply, demand figures, historical data, international market information, policies, and its impact. Mr. Rahul Chauhan would be talking about KHARIF Outlook 2022 of Tur and Urad production. He would be giving us the output, perspective, and projected demand. Over to you, Rahul ji.
Namaskar IPGA, and thank you IPGA for conducting this regular seminar webinars on pulses, and thanks Mr. Rohit Kumar for supporting this industry. So please carry on. Next please. So most important thing over India is the monsoon. Right now you can see the graph in red areas of the India. They are deficit. They don't have good rains this year. And fortunately, these are the areas where pulses are grown less as compared to other states. Like states like Madhya Pradesh, the rainfall is more than average of 22%. In Maharashtra, it is 18%. Karnataka, which is the most leading producer of tuar, they got 33%. Rajasthan, Urad is the major grown Kharif pulses, and the rains are above 45%, and Gujarat it's 29%. So good thing is that the main producing states of pulses, they got good rains, although there are some damages and in those areas, but overall crop seems to be normal. Next please. For showing these estimates, which I am showing by the government of India. So as on 1st of September, the overall sowing of tuar is 44 lakh ton or 4.4 million hectares. I'm sorry, and this area is lesser than 2.6 lakh hectares from last year. And in Karnataka and Maharashtra, which are the main production states of tuar, the area is reduced by 2.3 lakh hectares, but in MP it has been improved by double to 4 lakh hectares. So we have kept two different farmers and traders as per their feedback. The crop position in Gulbarga, Karnataka, is that the sowing sowing is lesser than 25 years from last year, but the crop is good due to good rain. And Raichur, sowing is less than 40 to 45%, and crop seems to be normal. In Latur, the sowing is lesser than 10%, and due to high rains, the attack of pest has been seen in that area. Due to that, productivity may be lesser than last year. If I come to in Badar, the sowing is equal to last year and good crop is expected. Although there is a small damage due to high crops, but overall crop is very good over there. In Khamgaon, the sowing is 10 to 15% more than the last year, and crop is in good condition. So overall condition in Karnataka and Maharashtra seems to be very good. And the on the left hand side, the MSP, I have shown the MSP. The MSP of Tuar for Kharif season, it has been 6,600 rupees, which is more than 300 rupees from last year. Next slide, please. So these are some production supply demand figures which I am showing to you. These figures are taken from various resources, and you can see that after this finishing of Kharif 20 season, the balance of Tuar crop was 6.5 lakh hectares, and in 2021 Kharif season, 37 lakh hectares of production was estimated as per trade, and total availability was about 52 lakh tons, and consumption was 42 lakh tons. And during the end of the Kharif 21 season, ending stock, closing stock was about 9 lakh tons. This year, I assume that crop production should be about 36 lakh tons, and total availability will be more than the last year due to high number of imports. And last year also, he imported about in Kharif season about 8.4 lakh tons of Tuar from different countries, which is more than twice than 2020 year. So in this Kharif season, the expected availability of Tuar, it should be 53.4 lakh tons. After consumption of 44 lakh tons, the balance comes out to be 9.4 lakh tons. It's not clear. Lesser area, the lesser area has been imported from last year, and the farmers, they prefer cotton and soybean and some coarse cereal this year. Farmers, they remember only the prices during when they sell their crops and during the sowing, and both the time the prices were less than MSP as per their expectations. So the sowing has been reduced in some parts, and people, they have moved to cotton and soybean as they got very good attractive prices in last season. And availability for this year and last year also has been increased due to high number of imports, thanks to the government of India for giving this, for allowing us to import till this financial year. As the crop is less and some part got damage, Myanmar exporters, they have started increasing their prices. So which may cool down when African crops comes in. And I assume that African crop, it may come by 15th of this September or the end week of this September. And government has done a very good task to increase the procurement from 25% to 40% for this year. This is a very good initiative taken by them. But actually, when the prices, if they are above MSP, then there might be some problem in procuring, because last season we have seen that in Lantin, the prices were above MSP and not a single grain was procured from the government. In the last Kharif 21 season, the procurement with the NAFED was about 35,000, and in Kharif 20 it was 11,000. In Kharif 2019, the prices were lower than MSP. The procurement by the nodal agencies was 5.4 lakh tons, and Kharif 18 it was 2.5 lakh tons. So what happens now? From last two seasons, the procurement was less, so NAFED is having low stocks of Tuar as of now, and due to that they are increasing this procurement from 25 to 40%, and expected stocks at NAFED is assumed to be 1.2 lakh tons, and in next this coming financial year we can import about 8.5 lakh tons from Myanmar and African nations. Next slide, please. This is for Udad. Towards the water area is also reduced, and overall swing is about 36.6 lakh hectares, which is lesser than 1.5 lakh hectares from last year. Good thing is that in MP the crop area has been increased wonderfully, and the crop is also good in most of the parts of Madhya Pradesh. In Maharashtra and Rajasthan, the crop is reduced by 1.5 lakh hectares, and UP it is same about 7 lakh. Toward the MSP of one of these is about 6,600 rupees, which was earlier 6,300 rupees. So crop position in Gulbarga is that sowing is lesser than 30 to 40%, but overall crop is satisfactory and in a good position. In Ganbasoda, the sowing is lesser than 25 to 30% from last year, and 30% of crop is affected due to high rains, because Urad crop is very short duration crop, and rains they can damage and they cannot recover as compared to poor. And Sagar, which is in MP, the sowing is less than 25%, crop is in good condition. Ashoknagar sowing is more than 20 to 25%, and there is slight rain damage due to the recent rains which happened 15 days back. And overall crop in MP and Rajasthan seems to be a little bit affected by erratic rains, and Maharashtra crop is very satisfactory. Next, please. This is production supply demand for tour. As per trade estimate, this year we might be having production of 24 lakh tons, which is lesser than last year due to some rains. And import was very good in Kharif 21 in 21 season and 22 season. In 21 we imported about 6.1 lakh from mainly from Myanmar. And the overall availability in this year coming to be 35.6 lakh tons, because due to high number of imports. And end of this season, image is not clear. The end of this season, the expected closing stock, it might come to 6.6 lakh tons, which is more than 1 lakh tons from last year. And during this financial year, from April to June, we have imported about 1 lakh tons of from mainly from Myanmar. And last year, we imported about 6.11 lakh tons. And in financial year 2021, we imported 3.4 lakh tons from countries. And poor also this year, the procurement target has been increased from 25 to 40%. So it depends how the market, the prices will behave during arrivals. Based upon that, procurement will happen. And last year, the ending stock is higher than due to imports, and in some parts of India, poor order crop is from last 3 years. It is affected by severe rains and bad weather. So in Kharif 21, we have procured about 1521 metric ton of product, which is very less, and Kharif 28 is 137. In Kharif 2018, when the prices were less than MSP, the procurement was 4.23 lakh tons, which is very high. So overall stocks with the nodal agencies is about to be 40,000 plus metric tons. And this financial year, I am assuming that we can import about 6 lakh tons of urad in this financial year. Next, please. So this sheet which I have prepared is clearly mentioning that the import prices of tuar and urad, they are more than the local prices in India. That's why there are from last 2 months the import is very less in India. If you compare, I have checked with the 1st of September, the poor prices in Chennai, KHARIF prices were $890 per metric ton, which and the landing cost is 7,350 rupees per quintal. And if you compare with the Chennai market, the prices were 7,175 rupees per quintal, and which is lesser than 174. So as the prices in domestic markets are higher than the imported, so people their demand is very less, and Chennai Udad, the lemon prices, they are lesser than 174 rupees. If I compare with the Gulbarga Tuar, the prices are about 350 rupees to 700 rupees more than the imported price because this is as per the quality. Latur 63 variety, the prices were about 7,700, which is lesser than the imported price about 250 to 351 rupees. So imported Tuar cost is more than the domestic market. Same is happening with the Urad. Save prices on 1st of September, it was $850 dollars per metric ton. The imported value was 7,030 rupees per quintal. If I compare with the Chennai spot prices, the Chennai is much higher than 130 rupees from Chennai prices. The spot prices of Chennai Urad 6900 on 1st of this September. Chennai Urad, the FAQ is about 129 rupees lesser than the this one lesser more than the input price. Lesser than input price. For the prices of Urad are 4,500 to 5,300, and Jabalpur, which is in MP, the prices are as per quality. They are from 5,480 to 7,000. And the prices by I have of these mandis by I took because arrival is coming in this mandi, and rest of the mandi arrival is very less. Next slide, please. This is the price trend of Tuar from last 1 year. If you see the, I have compared with Chennai lemon, Gulbarga Tuar, and Myanmar lemon dollar prices. If you see the Chennai Tuar lemon has reached the highest level of 7,600 and lowest level of 6,000 rupees per quintal. In last 2 months, the prices have been increased by 1,600 rupees in Chennai. And if you compare with Gulbarga, the prices are the highest prices of Udab, they were 8,650 and the lowest were 5,500. So in last 2 months, the prices they have increased by 3,000 rupees per quintal. It is very huge amount. And highest Latur traded in last year was 8,800 and the lowest was 5,000. As of course, in last 2 months, the prices have been increased by 3,800 rupees. So Myanmar, the prices of Tuar, they were about $965, which was very high, which was the highest, and lowest was $700. So in 8 months, the prices of Myanmar Tuar they have increased by $263. Next, please. Same comparison I have done with Urad. In Urad, the highest Chennai from this data from last year, the highest Chennai Tuar lemon was 7,600 rupees and the lowest was 6,000 rupees. In 2 months, the price surged by 1,600 rupees in most of the mandis. Highest Gulbarga prices were reported by 8,500 rupees and the lowest was 5,500. And the price has been increased by marvelous 3,150. In Latur, the Tuar is traded at the highest of 8,800 rupees and lowest by 5,000 rupees. And the prices has been increased by 3,800 rupees in past 2 months. So Myanmar highest prices, I'm sorry. Highest Chennai Urad FAQ was 7,500, which was in August 22, and SQ was 8,900. The lowest was FAQ 5,600, SQ was 5,925. In June and in July and August, the prices of FAQ and SQ has been increased so much, showing is lesser due to range Myanmar exporters that increased in their prices. Latur trend is lowest. They have traded about 4,000 rupees and top they have achieved 7,600 rupees. Jabalpur was trending about 8,100 and the arrivals are high. And Myanmar FAQ lowest prices were $775 and SQ they have reached about 865. And December 21 they were reached at the highest level. And highest FAQ reached in that duration was 1,000 US dollars and SQ quality was 1,130. And prices are continuously increasing in Myanmar. Next, please. Now the factors which are affecting the market. They're like due to less domestic production and availability, the dependency of on imports has been increased. Prices, uh, the production in African countries and Myanmar, they have increased from last 2 3 years. Import is still 31st of March 23, and traders they are buying only as per their need. The dollar the dollar rupees as compared to dollar has been uh, depreciated due to that. Imports is also affected by that, and the traders, they fear due to regular intervention of the government, and government is, they're trying to do their best so that end users get the correct prices. Lower stock with agencies will be a challenge for the government, and traders, they fear that based upon their last experience, some policies might change, like they are hoping that stock limit may come in poor. And farmers, they are losing interest in pulses because from last 1 year, the prices of pulses are lesser than the MSP, and they are losing interest in them. They are increasing the area of various crops as compared to last year. So imported goods can be purchased. So imported goods can be purchased by agencies to keep stocks. Now the in fact, they have today they have launched tender to purchase imported products for season 2020. And the highest bidding today in Navasheva was 7,650. And Chennai, the bidding was done on highest bidding was 7,396. After this high bidding, today the prices have been increased in Chennai, and these are some things which I want to share with you. And if you see in the short and long-term prospect, due to high arrivals of African tourists in coming days, prices may trade down, and from January, new crop will come in Karnataka, and from Feb, import from Myanmar, it will increase. So if the procurement is increased, it may increase the prices. If the prices are below MSP, then due to the procurement by the government, prices can increase. And overall short and long term are like that. During new arrivals, prices may trade near MSP, that is 6,600 rupees, as we have less and import is less in this financial year, because in the last 2 months import was was on downside as compared to last year. And extension, I assume that Myanmar crop will start coming from March, and like last year, government might increase the date of import deadline timelines. In order, if the procurement is increased, then market will then increase also. And these are the stocks available with the nodal agencies. And the Chana stocks are about 30 plus lakh tons, and the Moong is 3.5 lakh tons. Poor, it is more than 1 lakh tons. And Urad, it is 40,000 tons. Masoor is available with the nodal agencies, stock is 70 lakh tons. Overall, the overall stock is 35.6 lakh tons, and the norms are 23 lakh tons. So, during last season, the chana prices were lower than MSP. So there was a huge procurement by the government. Same can happen in poor also, which is good for us to keep the prices under control. Next slide, please. These are some import and export numbers of pulses from India. The figure which I'm showing you, it might surprise you, that in May 2022, we have imported about 68,134 tons of various pulses, and we have exported about 1.46 lakh tons of pulses from India. It is more than the import. So overall, we have imported from April to June, we have imported about 2.73 lakh tons of pulses, and exported about 2.75. So the export is more than the last.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, sir. We have last 2-3 minutes, please.
Okay. So overall, I would like to thank Mr. Rohit Kumar Singh for his kind words and supporting this industry. I met with him in Consumer Affairs 6 months back, and he was very supportive to the industry. And on the basis of the feedback from industry, government has increased, import of pulses till March 23, and I'd like to thank IPGA also for conducting these webinars on a regular basis. If you need any questions, you can ask me in chat. And this is my little introduction. We provide daily market rates and policies, production, supply, demand, and historical data. If anybody needs, please contact them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahul Chauhan, for the detailed perspective on Tur and Urad production. So our next speaker for the day is Mr. Jeff Rumney. He is the Vice President Marketing, USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council. Mr. Jeff Rumney has been with the USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council since the last 6 years. Prior to assuming the role of Vice President Marketing, he was the Director of Research and Council. Currently, at the USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council, he is spearheading the effort to promote US chickpeas, lentils, and dry peas across various regions. Jeff has pursued his doctorate from University of Wisconsin Madison in plant breeding and plant genetics. Prior to joining the USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council, Jeff worked at the Mantona Grain State Lab as the bureau chief. He would be updating us regarding the USA crop production. Over to you, Mr. Jeff.
Good morning, namaste, good evening to all of you. It's early in the morning for me here in Moscow, Idaho, but I'm glad to have this opportunity to meet with you. I want to thank the organizers, especially my gratitude goes to Vimal Khatari and the entire team of IPGA for organizing this event. I do hope to come to India very soon and see you all in person and eat your wonderful food. I do miss the opportunity to travel. But that will be happening very soon. So if we'd like to go ahead and start the slides, that would be great. So today, I'm going to give a market update. If you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great. The USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council is a trade organization in the United States that represents both the farmers and the industry. So our umbrella organization as the council organizes farmer meetings, does farmer trainings, does counseling for farmers to increase their crop production for many crops, but focused on peas, lentils, and chickpeas. And we also, our organization, the U.S. Pea and Lentil Trade Association, is an organization that's about 30 years old, and it's been supporting the export and utilization of pulses in the United States and around the world. Next slide. So as an overview today, I'll be talking about U.S. production and the history of our trade with India. I'll focus in on the 22 production and quality of this year's crop, and just talk a little bit about pricing and shipping. Next slide. So this slide shows a history of pulse production in the United States from 2008 to last year, 2021. And you can see in the years starting around 2011, there was a large increase in pulse production in the United States. And that increase in production actually was paralleled with a fairly stable and increasing price all the way up to 2017. And most of that increased production, not all, but most of that increased production went into the export market into India. Next slide. So this slide represents the exports from the United States to India from 2012 to 2022. And you can see the striking difference between the first part of the slide and the second part of the slide. And this, I think there's an obvious reason for the decline in exports to India. starting in 2017, and that was the association with the tariffs that were placed on U.S. lentils, U.S. chickpeas, and U.S. dried peas. Now, if we were to compare a similar type of slide, say for with Canada, the Canadians also experienced a reduction in exports to India in 2017, but those exports have recovered for Canada and for Australia. And that's simply because the tariffs have been reduced on those exporting nations. And that hasn't occurred for the United States. So let's talk a little bit about how the impact of these tariffs and this important market for the US producers has affected us in the recent years. So I'm going to go to the next slide. You'll notice this slide shows a long-term price for dry peas, lentils, and chickpeas. This is the price at the farmer level. And the particular value doesn't matter so much. What I want to point out on this slide is the extreme volatility that farmers see in pulse pricing across the years. If you were to look at this chart for, say, corn or barley or canola or soybeans, the prices are much more stable. And it's because the marketing system is different. And one of the things that we're working in the United States to do is to connect the farmer to the processor to the end user over a longer period of time to reduce the volatility of pricing and availability along that supply chain. And we're starting to see those changes occur in our export markets to Mexico and to Europe and even into Pakistan. And now we would like to work on that same strategy in our markets in India. But we do need relief from the tariffs in order to work on that project. Next slide. So the growing conditions in the United States in 2022 were average. And that's like saying if you're standing in a bucket of ice water with your left foot and a bucket of boiling water for your right foot, that things would be average, the temperature would be okay. The growing conditions across our production region were actually quite variable. Some areas had too much water, too cool, and some areas were very, very dry. So we'll go into a little bit of detail on those growing conditions. Next slide. So this is the drought map across North America in July of 2022. So this would be, right before harvest, the drought has impacted our production region. So go ahead, next. So just to focus in on our production areas, the major production areas in the United States are Idaho, Washington, Montana, and North Dakota. And you can see in the central part of Montana, a very dry region. And this is a primary production region of pulses in the United States. It's called the Golden Triangle. Wheat and barley and canola are produced there as well. So in Idaho, where I live, and a lot of high quality green peas are grown, the growing season was actually quite good, quite moist, a little bit cool starting out. And North Dakota was in pretty good shape as well. You can see on this map that the drought has extended up into Canada, similar to last year. So next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the commodities, starting out with dry peas. Next slide. So the next three slides will show the production of US dry peas across the historical time. So in 1995, most of the production was used domestically in soups, and we had about 200,000 acres produced in 1995. Next slide. By 2015, production had greatly expanded across Montana and North Dakota, and much of this production was being exported around the world, but also a fair amount was going into pet food production in the United States. Next slide. So you see the current production in 2022, we had about 1 million acres planted, again, concentrated around the Palouse area in Idaho and Washington, where I live, and also in Montana. the Golden Triangle, but that eastern section of Montana, the western section of North Dakota, where the fairly good moisture occurred, that's where a tremendous amount of peas are produced. And you're also seeing some production occur in more southern regions, in Nebraska, in Kansas, some in Colorado, and a lot of that production is going into the pet food market. Next slide. So this slide might be a little bit small. There's a lot of data on this slide, but this goes through the stocks on hand report for U.S. dry peas from 2017 to 2022, 2023. So it's a little hard to give a stocks on hand report for this year because we are just coming through the completion of harvest. We don't know exactly what the yields are. I've been doing quite a bit of survey with the industry on what the yields are in the various regions. So just in summary, we have about 1 million acres that were planted this year. We anticipate about 900,000 acres will be harvested. And we're predicting the yield to be about 1,700 pounds to the acre, which is slightly less than our 5-year average. Usually we predict around 2,000 pounds, or essentially 1 metric ton per acre. Now, last year, our production was about 1,000 pounds per acre, which is significantly lower, and that was caused by extreme drought over most of the region. Last year at the ending, our stocks on hand was about 15%. So we had a fair amount of carry in this year, 142,000 metric tons. And we predict our production this year to be about 740,000 metric tons, which is twice what our production was last year. Most of that production will be in yellow peas, about 448,000 metric tons, and the balance in green peas, about 300,000 metric tons. So our overall supply, we're predicting 889,000 metric tons. Again, this is a forecast. We're probably about 3 or 4 weeks out from having really accurate numbers for dry peas. We do know that the quality on dry peas is in really good shape, especially the green peas that are produced in Washington and Idaho are in excellent shape. And we're getting reports that out of the eastern part of Montana, the green peas and yellow peas are in excellent shape as well. Next slide. So this focuses in on a little bit more detail for the acres planted, acres harvested, and production for peas in the United States. And you can see again on this slide that our production this year is going to be essentially double from what it was last year. So we have ample supplies of both green peas and yellow peas from the United States. So that's good news. It's very good news for the export market. Next slide. This shows the monthly price to the producer from 2021 to current prices. And you can see that as we came out of the drought year, prices started to come up, and they've been fairly stable across the marketing year. And as we came into the production year, the prices have dropped a little bit. So now is a good opportunity for contracting for peas for the export market. Next slide. So I'll go through a similar scenario for lentils. The next slide. So again, back in 1995, very little production in the United States. A lot of this was going, again, domestically into the soup and dry pack market, about 170,000 acres in the United States, mostly in the PULSES region in Washington and Idaho. Next slide. 2015, again, the production region in Idaho and Washington remained about the same, but we saw that huge increase, especially in eastern Montana and western North Dakota, almost 500,000 acres produced in 2015. Next slide. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So in 2022, again, very similar to 2015 when we had our peak production years. We see a lot of good production out in eastern Montana and western North Dakota. They had fairly decent growing conditions in those regions. We did have quite a bit of insect pressure with grasshoppers in that region. So the farmers had to do quite a bit of spraying to control the grasshoppers on wheat and on lentils as well. Next slide. So again, this is our detailed stocks on hand for lentils. This year, we anticipate the yield to be right around 1,000 pounds per acre, and it's incredibly variable across the region. Some areas are going over 2,000, 2,500 pounds to the acre, and some areas maybe 300 pounds to the acre. And a lot of that had to do with growing conditions due to moisture and also insect pressure. So on average, we're going to be probably just a little bit below our 5-year average for yield. But we did have, we anticipate about 600,000 acres that will be harvested, in our production this year to be 285,000 metric tons. So we did have some carry in this year. We had about 15% carryover. So that equals about 47,000 metric tons. So our US supply will be about 330,000 metric tons. And you'll see on this chart that a majority of that is what we, on this chart, is listed as medium lentils. Those would be the richly styled lentils, the green lentils, with about 200,000 metric tons available. Next slide. So again, this shows the detail on our lentils compared to 2022 versus our current year, 2023 marketing year. And we do have an increased supply available for export this year. Next slide. And again, similar pricing trend for US lentils. Last year, coming out of the drought, prices were a little bit low and demand was high. So we saw prices increasing throughout the marketing year, and then they've stabilized now. You know, farmers are seeing this little bit lower price, or right now are a little bit reluctant to sell. They're waiting for the prices to go up. So it's definitely time to start negotiating prices with the processors. Okay, next slide. So I'll go through a similar scenario with chickpeas. Next slide. Back in 1995, the center of chickpea production was actually in California, just very little production in the Palouse. Next slide. So by 2015, the story had completely changed. Production of chickpeas had greatly expanded in Washington and Idaho. A lot of that product was going into the hummus market in the United States. At that time, 50% of the chickpeas were consumed domestically in the United States. And the production was just starting to expand in Montana and in North Dakota. So the current slide, next slide. In 2022, again, we see quite a bit of production in the Palouse area. A lot of that is a smaller caliber chickpea that's going into the pet food market, but also into hummus. And some of it is actually starting to be milled into flour. We see that flour demand for chickpea greatly increasing in the United States as well. A lot of that going into pasta and food manufacturing. One thing that's a little bit shocking on this slide is our center of production for chickpeas in Montana is that Golden Triangle, and that's the area that suffered the greatest drought this year. So next slide. This slide shows, again, our detailed stocks on hand report from 2017 to current. We're predicting a yield of about 1,300 pounds and don't have a lot of faith in that number, whether it's going to be 1,000 or 1,300 or 1,500. We're anticipating that chickpea harvest is going to be about 2 or 3 weeks late this year. Now, chickpea is a little bit longer crop in the United States. We had a cool spring. so it's really hard to know exactly what the yield is going to be, but we're probably just conservatively predicting it's going to be slightly less than normal. So we had quite a bit of carry-in on chickpeas last year. We had 30% carry-in. So we had 90,000 metric tons of carry-in. Our production, we're predicting about 200,000 metric tons. The majority of that is in the large caliber chickpeas, 140,000 metric tons. If you look in detail on this slide, you'll notice that there's been quite a bit of increase in small chickpea production here in the United States. We went from 18,000 metric tons last year to 58,000 metric tons this year. That is due to increase in the demand for chickpeas going into milling in the United States. Next slide. So again, this is kind of a more overall picture for chickpea production. And we do see a significant increase in the availability of chickpeas from the United States for this marketing year. Next slide. So this is the pricing from 2021 to current. Again, coming out of the drought, we saw pricing creeping up in the beginning of last marketing year, but it's been fairly stable throughout the marketing year and for our current farmer price. Next slide. So one of the issues that you've heard about across the United States, across the world, is the issue of shipping. And it's greatly impacted the export of our commodities, wheat, corn, soybeans, meat products to China, and pulses out of our West Coast ports to China, to South America, to Europe, and to India, frankly, as well. It's impacting all of the commodities and really all of the ports. So next slide. But the United States government is taking action. Very recently, there was an act that was passed in the United States called the Ocean Shipping Reform Act. Spoke directly with Daniel Menifee, the chairman of the Federal Maritime Commission, on the impact of this act. And it's really putting a lot of pressure on the ocean carriers to treat the ag shippers, the ag exporters, more fairly, in not charging them excess fees, in the availability of containers, and just the ability to move containers off the port and into the export market. So we see this as having a huge impact on our ability to ship products into the export market. Not everything has taken place yet, but changes are definitely happening. So go ahead, next slide. So with that, I'd like to thank the opportunity to present the U.S. market update, and be glad to take any questions at the end of the session. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff, for the detailed update. I'm sure it was quite helpful. Dear participants, requesting you to please post your questions in the question box. We shall have the Q&A session soon. Next, we have Mr. Pritesh Nandu. He is the partner at Matlal Hirji & Company, Navi Mumbai. Matlal Hirji & Company is a family-owned business dealing in pulses for more than 50 years and 3 generations. Pritesh Nandu has an experience of more than 25 years and specializes in import and Kabuli kidney beans, peas, and brown eye beans, besides other pulses. Matlal Hirji & Company is an APMC grain market in Vashi, Navi Mumbai, the market being one of the largest grain markets in Asia. Mr. Nandu would be giving us an update on green peas and yellow peas crop production and demand supply scenario from the trade perspective. Please go ahead, Mr. Nandu. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Lata, for the wonderful introduction. I would also like to thank Mr. Bimal Kothari and the IPGA team for giving me this opportunity to present to you the outlook of peas in India. I would also like to welcome Mr. Jeff, the Vice President of Marketing of USA Dry Peas and Lentil Council and its members. The Indian green bean farmers have fulfilled the Indian government and our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is self-sufficient India. As you all know, the import of peas was restricted by the Indian government in April 2018. Thereafter, as we heard from Mr. Rohit Kumar Singh, the Indian government supported the farmers to grow all types of pulses. There were various schemes of the government with a view to make India self-sufficient in pulses. Due to their efforts, the production of green peas has been continuously increasing in India. Before 2018, India used to import 1.5 lakh metric tons of green peas. But in 2022, India has not only become self-sufficient, but has also exported green peas, a small amount, but definitely more than next year. The large production of peas in India can be estimated by the huge crash in the prevailing prices of green peas this year. Early 2018, the prices of green peas were around rupees 50 per kg. After the restrictions, there were still available imported green bean stocks and some allowed via court orders. But the prices started rising. By 2019, the prices increased to rupees 140, that is a 300% increase because of less stocks. 2020-21, the Indian green peas production started increase, and by 2021, the prices have stabilized to rupees 100. For the crop of 2022, which started in March, the prices went down to rupees 70, a 30% decrease. Having seen such high prices for past few years, the stockists started buying local peas when the new crop came. But in April, the price decreased further to rupees 55, a total 45% decrease. With more arrivals in May, it crashed down to rupees 36, a total 64% decrease. The stockists had high price stocks already in their inventory, some average, some bought new, and there was literally no place in the cold storages all over India, because coal in green peas and yellow peas are mostly stored in cold storage in India due to infestation. June, July, the prices stabilized to around rupees 40 with a slight increment. And August, due to more festival season, the prices increased by another rupees 5. Now we come to the production figures. Government of India does not share any specific details of green peas production in India. They club it with other pulses. Before 2018, India had a small crop of green peas, say about 15,000 metric tons. They had a variety called Hema peas, which was locally grown in Uttar Pradesh state and locally consumed mostly. In 2021, the pace of green peas production increased to around 80,000 metric tons with improved quality, including the smooth round green peas. It is difficult to gauge the exact production figure, but we can derive it from market insight. Green pea production in 2022 has been a bumper crop in India. As per my sources, the production of green peas for the current year can be estimated to a mind-boggling 3 lakh metric tons in just a few years. The major growing areas are located in the Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh border. The main mandis are mandis like Aurai, Mahua, Rath, Lalitpur. Yellow peas mostly near Kanpur. Also, we could see a smooth round variety of green peas grown in Gujarat near the Rajkot mandis. These are the pictures of the few varieties grown in India, the new varieties. The first is Uday Kasi. It is a big grain, little dimple variety, more like the USA Colombian ones. The next is the normal one, which is smooth round, some grains dimple. And the third is the Rajkot variety, Gujarat, which is smooth round. Also some quantity grown in Uttar Pradesh belt, also smooth round green peas. Yellow peas. India used to produce before 2018, 5 lakh tons of yellow peas and used to import 20 lakh metric tons of yellow peas. The local production of yellow peas has now gradually increased to 8 lakh tons. The quality of local crop has improved a lot. thus channelizing a sizable quantity in the retail market. Yellow peas current price range from rupees 55 to 65, depending on the price and color. The yellow pea crop production in India has a huge potential. A higher production can always be used in the basin industry, as we used to always import more than 20 lakh metric tons earlier. Price outlook and production outlook. There's still a huge stock of green peas stored in cold storages all over across India. But October onwards, being festival season of Navratri, Diwali, and then the wedding season in India, we'll see an upside in demand for green peas. Depending upon the demand, a 20% increase in green peas prices from rupees 45 to rupees 55 is expected. For yellow peas also, there will be a 15% increase in prices to rupees 70. In 2023, the next year, most likely the production of green peas would decline marginally because the farmers did not get the good prices this year in May and June. And also the prices of wheat this year is very high, and there's a lot of demand of wheat crop in India. So the Orai mandis and those green peas growing, yellow peas growing mandis originally used to grow more of wheat. So might be little substitution of wheat for green peas area. But yellow peas, of course, the production will increase. The farmers have received good prices, and there is a more demand for yellow peas from the basin industry and from the retail consumers. The next goal towards a brighter future is that the Indian government should, and the Indian millers should look at cleaning the cargo more better, install more nice machinery, add Sortex machines to make the peas quality more marketable for the retail consumer. Also, the normal traditional grains and pulses are stored in warehouses, but the peas require cold storage chain. So, of course, more cold storage chain is also required so that more cargo can be stored. The farmers' cargoes are not infested with pests, and it can have a long-lasting life. Of course, we miss the US peas, we miss the Colombian, we miss the Ramba brand, the top-notch brand, but India is also slowly developing more better quality, and with government efforts, I think so India will have better varieties, better quality Sortex, cold storage, and will become a bigger exporter in green peas. And yellow peas, at least we can be self-sufficient. Thank you. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, Priteshji, for sharing your knowledge and taking us through this insightful presentation.
Yeah.
Our next speaker for the day is Mr. Sachin Khurana. Mr. Sachin Khurana is from the QR Group, is the Indian region representative of the USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council. Sachin has more than 2 decades of experience in the F&B marketing sector in the Indian region with a deep understanding of government and regulatory affairs in the South Asian region. USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council is a non-profit organization that promotes and protects the interest of growers, processors, warehousemen, and sellers of dry peas, lentils, chickpeas in the United States. The 5,000 growers, processors, exporters, and associates represented by USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council take pride in their ability to produce the highest quality dry peas, lentils, chickpeas for national and international markets. USA Dry Pea, Lentil, and Chickpeas earning the standard of quality seal every day. Today, he would be talking to us about Standard of Quality campaign that USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council would be introducing in India. Over to you, Mr. Khurana. Please unmute your line.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, Lata. I'm happy to be a part of this webinar today. I'd really like to thank Bimalji and the team at IPGA, especially Pranav, who helped us organize this. It's always a pleasure to partner with IPGA and help the industry gain more knowledge. And I think at USA IPN Metal Council, that's been our endeavor for the Indian market. Before I move on to my presentation, I'd really like to thank Jeff for the US crop update today. It's music to my ears that we have more crop available for exports, and I'd like to encourage the whole industry to reach out to either Jeff or me if they have any queries regarding crop, or if they want to connect with suppliers, understand the situation. Please do feel free to reach out to us. Today, I'm going to talk about the Standard for Quality campaign that we're introducing in India. If we could have the presentation, please. Thanks, Roshan. If you could move to the next slide, please. So in Standard for Quality, as you would know, most of you have already worked with US Pulses and know that it's the premium most quality that's produced across the world. It is our pleasure today to share details for the Standard for Quality program. It's an exclusive program that we're starting for a handful of partners in the country who will actually have access to our Standard for Quality seal. The idea is, and what we're looking to do is US pulses are the highest quality pulses in the world, which actually enables us to earn the Standard for Quality seal every day. With the Standard for Quality program, what we're trying to do is bring this package to India, bring this seal to India, and work with packagers, retailers as a joint partnership where we assist them in creating these brands that have the Standard for Quality seal, which have this US product, and which helps consumers reach out to and have access to the best quality pulses that are available across the world. This campaign that we're launching here today is actually going to promote these quality pulses in India and educate consumers about these pulses, which are really high in protein, they're high in fiber, they're high in iron, and other essential nutrients. We are inviting all of you and all of the trade partners in India, be it retailers, be it packers, be it pulses traders, to come and partner with us to introduce a new range of US pulses, which will have the Standard for Quality seal and have them in the Indian market. If we could move to the next slide, please. This is actually a unique program that's been run very successfully in different parts of the world. We already have this campaign running in different markets across Central America and Southeast Asia. What we're trying to do is we'll work with you as a partner, right from assisting in importing US chickpeas, green lentils, but also in development of joint packaging that highlights the Standard for Quality seal, which is the certification that these are the best quality pulses available across the world. What we're also trying to do is introduce the new package, which can be marketed at a premium point. We are going to launch a massive marketing campaign that will help inform and create awareness about the premium quality of these pulses, and also market these pulses and the brands that are launched together with us via various ATL and BTL activities. We will also be constantly measuring the campaign that's happening to ensure that there are results and we are able to create more awareness, be it among consumers or among trade. Roshan, if we could move to the next slide, please. We will have multiple activities to promote these Standard for Quality products. So be it partnering with a packager, be it partnering with a retailer, be it partnering with one of our existing Pulses trade partners. The idea is we create these new packages that have the Standard for Quality seal and the Produced in America logo, and then assist them in promoting these packages and these brands that are so created. Be it via different things like the in-store promotions at retail stores where these packets are being sold at, or via partnerships like different sort of influencer marketing programs. We're also looking at having a brand ambassador, which will be either a very prominent chef or a Bollywood celebrity. We'll be supporting these packaging with different sort of branding opportunities in various retail stores, leading as well as modern retail and our traditional markets, which are so important in our Indian context. We'll have a very massive print advertisement campaign and a digital advertisement campaign. They'll help ensure that more and more consumers are aware about the premium quality of US pulses and actually go out and search for these pulses when they're shopping for their families for their daily grocery needs. What we're also going to do is partner with leading e-commerce and m-commerce players to ensure this visibility for these packages and also a prominent placement for these packaging, be it in retail stores or even at e-commerce portals and traditional markets as well. What we're trying to do with this campaign is select a handful of participants, up to 3 to 4 that we'll partner with this year, create these new brands, and then assist you in marketing these brands further. My team and I would be happy to answer any questions. If you have questions about this campaign, if you'd like to come and join hands with us, if you'd like to partner with us for this campaign, I would urge and request all of you to reach out to us, become a part of the Standard for Quality campaign. It showcases our commitment to the market. It showcases the efforts that are going into the market. This year, we are launching 3 new campaigns. One has already been in place. We're doing a massive campaign in India that is trying to create awareness about the health and nutrition perspectives of pulses and why we should eat more and more pulses. This is the second in that leg where we are specifically creating more awareness about quality pulses and why we should consume more of this. We would urge the industry to come and partner with us. Please feel free to reach out to Jeff or me if you have any questions. We'll be happy to explain to you what we are doing in this, how we can partner together. And also, if you have any questions around the US crop or sourcing, please do feel free to reach out to us. Thanks, everyone. And thanks again, Lata, Bimalji, and the IPGA team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khurana. That was quite knowledgeable and interesting. Our next speaker is Mr. Ritesh Mittal, Director, Panshri, Delhi. Panshri has a splitting plant of moong in Rai, Haryana, with daily production capacity of approximately 800 quintals per day. Panshri was among the biggest importers of green moong beans from Australia and Argentina. He would be appraising us regarding the KHARIF Outlook 2022 of moong crop production and demand supply scenario from the trade perspective. Over to you, Mr. Mittal. Please unmute your line.
Is it audible now?
Yes, please
Okay.
go ahead.
Thanks a lot. And can I have my slideshow? Okay, I'll be talking about green moong beans, the Kharif crop. Next slide, please. As we all know about the Kharif crop, now the sowing time was in the mid of July, and after 60 to 65 days, we will start getting the moong, which will be after 15 to 20 days. Few example of Kharif crops are like paddy, maize, bajra, soya beans, and different type of pulses, in which the main are tur, urad, and moong. Can I have the next slide? About the green moong beans, as we know, it's like it's the blessing for vegetarians, and it's very rich in protein. Next slide, please. The main producing green moong bean states in India are Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, and Rajasthan. And now after 15-20 days, we'll be getting the crop from Rajasthan. Government is having approximately excess stock of 13 lakh tons pulses stock, and NAFED is having around 36,000 lakh stock of pulses, in which main is chana, next is tur and moong. The temperature which we need to sow the green moong beans is 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, and which was perfect this time. And though the sowing area looks less this time, but we are expecting good crop this time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Mittal. A reminder to all participants to please post your questions in the question box. We shall be having the question and answer session soon. And our last speaker for today is Mr. Lalit Bangar. He's a chartered accountant by profession and very closely associated with pulse industry for 25 years. He has many years of enriching experience in international pulse trade from various origins to various destinations. With great passion for the industry, he has been a known speaker on various international pulses forums. His last stint was at Aditya Birla Group, his Swiss Singapore overseas enterprise. the pulses business, of which grew from very small volume to more than 250,000 tons a year under his leadership. He would be speaking about production of African tur crop, production of Myanmar tur crop, and overall outlook on demand and supply of India of tur. Over to you, Lalitji.
Uh, Thank you, Tataji. And I thank IPGA to really invite me for this wonderful webinar. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all viewers worldwide. I think there is some issue with this on the presentation telecast here. So I'll share from my side. Okay, is it visible, please? Hello.
Yes, it's visible. Please go ahead.
Great. So I will be talking about the one of very important pulses, which is Tur hole, and the major origins for Tur hole is Myanmar and various African countries. Uh, so earlier the import to India were mainly being done from Myanmar, but gradually Africa has increased their share in the exports to India. So I'll be talking about the production numbers first. This is the overview of Tur hole. As you can see, gradually the production is also increasing and export is also increasing. Thanks to the Indian government policies, which was formed sometime few years back for by having MOUs with certain countries, which has really raised the hope into the farmers into those respective countries. So this was the far-sightedness of the Indian government to really lower the dependence on imports of Tur hole on Myanmar. Going forward, we'll see that how Myanmar production also has got impacted. So had we not have these imports from African countries, the prices even would have gone much higher into India. So this is the overall. Africa actually covers primarily few countries, which is Tanzania, Mozambique, Malawi, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Kenya primarily. So I'll be taking you through the respective origin-wise, country-wise, the numbers. Let's go to Mozambique. Now, of late, Mozambique has become the largest African country to export to India and otherwise. Earlier, it used to be Tanzania. I would say about earlier, when I say earlier, it's about a decade back. And as you can see, the production also is increasing. The exports is also increasing. Initially, there were some quality issues with Mozambique tour about the moisture and other parameters. But with the experience and with the trade, continuous trade with the various countries, they have improved the quality of the Mozambique tour. And the farmers are also encouraged to grow more and more. As the Indian government also has an MOU for last few years with Mozambique. So this is really proved helpful for catering to the demand-supply gap into India. Next is Malawi. Malawi is also a small, has a small share in the exports from Africa. This year about 50,000 tons. Tanzania used to be the
Sorry to interrupt. You are not very clearly audible. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, this is slightly better.
Okay, fine. So Tanzania used to be historically the biggest African country to export Tur hole to India about a decade back. But now they are settled at around 200,000 tons of the production and exports. These are the numbers from Myanmar, which has been our long-term partner for exports to India, besides Urad and Moong and other pulses. You can see there was a fall in the production in 2020-21 thanks to the abrupt policy changes, which has really shackled the confidence of Myanmar farmers that time. And but afterwards, with an assurance and with the extension of the OGL imports and the continuation of the OGL imports, despite being MOU in place, the farmers and the international trading communities are confident of having this flow continuing to India. And being the very short voyage period to India, they can very well plan, grow, and realize their money faster than other countries. This is the total production, which is very relevant slide. I believe that is the most relevant slide for this presentation. The overall production of this year, the October this year is estimated overall the highest ever so far, taking the whole countries together. So, as Mr. Rohit informed that this year we have seen the erratic rains might impact the production by 6 to 7% of crude oil into India, but nothing to worry about because we can see that the production in the respective countries are going to go this year. So it's close to about 900 to 1 million tons is going to be grown in various countries. Myanmar, you can see it's almost doubled from last year. Tanzania going in the same range of around 180, 190. Mozambique is increased, Malaysia also increased, and Sudan, Kenya, and Uganda. So you can see.
विकी और क्या कुछ काम वाम हुआ? हाँ बस रिपोर्ट ही लेनी है, मेरे को लेना नहीं है कोई.
Can you ask someone to sit down? Ladakhi, can you see somebody there? Okay, thank you. So these numbers really show that though there will be a fall in production, expected fall in production in India.
Sorry to interrupt again. You are not audible. The volume is very low.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah, okay. So these numbers really exhibit that despite the fall in production, expected fall in production in India about 5 to 6 to 7%, it will be made up by the excessive production in respective countries. So from trade perspective, I feel that the prices should be in the range bound, and with the consistent government policy in place, with not much of intervention and not much of fear to the trading community as well as the pulses community, I believe that the trade will continue to the normal flow. These are the total imports from respective African countries into India. So as the figure shown, that now we are almost touching more than 500,000 tons, 600,000 tons imports is really being made from African countries. So Myanmar is taking a back seat, and the Africans are playing a good match here. And going forward, the other countries, other destinations like UAE, who has also accepted this African tour as a good alternate to Myanmar. I personally feel that going forward, there is a good scope for the Africa to really grow more production and more exports. These are the government's advance estimates released on August 25th for the current year is 4.34 million tons, which of course against their target of 4.3 million tons, which is very much in line with the targets. Very stable policy, and I must thank. In fact, I was delighted to hear Mr. Rohit Kumar with this when this started in the beginning of this session. That really you can feel a sort of a engagement between the trade pulses community, the traders, the millers, the consumers with the Indian government, which I don't think so it used to happen earlier. So the overall confidence level is increasing, and we didn't see any abrupt policy changes this year, which has really instilled a confidence in the overseas. I belong to the overseas community in a way, so there is a strong high level of confidence building in the respective countries overseas. And besides that, there are a lot of more changes which is going to take place in future, which is very relevant. I feel that I must mention here besides the numbers. Like in Myanmar, the farmers tend to shift to the other crops like green beans or corn if they don't get the proper prices for tur-hole and urad. So this is one change which has been observed in the last 2 years. Africa, of course, is coming in a big way. They're growing production year by year, and they're increasing share. The consumption of food is growing, which Mr. Rohit also mentioned, and we can also see that the consumption pattern has been changing. We can see a lot of vegetarianism in the world. It is being popular in the world. There are a lot of young generation eating various pulses made things, maybe in a different exotic way. it's a very sad that the Indian production also is being targeted to be increased with a consistent efforts for as a being an independent country to grow production. But unfortunately, we have to depend on the monsoons largely for production of pulses. So the policies have to be formed accordingly, keeping in view of any such setbacks going forward in future. So congratulations to the Indian government that the policies are so far they are quite helpful and quite practical and proactive with a proactive approach. Then the one very important new development which is happening is that there are a lot of more and more new units are going to be set up in United Arab Emirates. The production, as we can see, last few months, many licenses or other sort of a MOU was signed with the UAE government, with the private millers. So they are going to set up a lot of factories, plants of pulses there. This is certainly going to suck up a lot of production from Africa and other places. So the Indian government has to be really keep themselves geared up for the further quantity requirement, because a lot of such these quantity will be moved out to UAE going forward. So few years back, I also that time discussed and I sort of forecasted that okay, UAE will become a central hub for pulses. Then now we can see that a lot of traders shifted to that place. So this is also going to happen soon. We will see a lot of new units coming to UAE. I live in UAE, so we can see that that is also going to impact the production and various different. So Indian government has to make more efforts into growing production as well as have the more community friendly policies in place. There are a lot of erratic exchange, which is exchange rates are there, currency exchange rates are fluctuating like anything. We have seen Myanmar. In Myanmar, the chart has depreciated by over 50%, close to 50% in very short while. This also going to make an impact. But anyway, we can't help on that. And I think with that, my time is over. Yeah, okay. Thanks once again. And I would like to invite any questions that would be. Thank you so much. Now, thank you so much, IPGA and others on the panel as well as the audience, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lalit Bangar. We would now move on to the question and answer session. We have a few questions. Others can keep posting. Okay. The questions that we have related to Tur and Urad, I'd just like to club them and put them together. Is Tur currently selling locally below MSP? Any view on the upcoming Tur quantity for September, October? And how do you see Urad in the long run? Can I request Mr. Rahul Chauhan to please answer these questions?
The prices of Tur in Jalna, they're about 6,000 to 6,200 rupees. In Jabalpur, they are about, as per the quality, they are about 4,900 to 7,100 rupees. In Viparia, they are prevailing about 5,000 to 7,500. These are the markets where the rivals are coming. So in some of the markets, the rivals are where the rivals are less and the quality is good. So the prices in most of the Maharashtra and Karnataka, they are above than the MSP. And import from Africa, I assume that by this month end, we will expect some shipments from Africa. And by end of the next week, October, we might be able to import about 1.5 lakh tons of Tur from Africa.
The next question. Is there any plan to impose import duty on red lentil, considering international price lentil will be traded below MSP by the end October, if not early?
These are related to government policies. I cannot comment on that.
Okay. Okay, there's another question.
On
Mr. Rohit.
Shows or which proves that or which takes you to put the import duty as of now. Though, of course, it is a government policy decision, but only the the factor of prices going below or above the MSP is not to be considered while imposing duty. There are a lot of other factors to be considered. So as of now, I personally feel there should not be any imposition.
Okay. Thank you, Shri Rohit Kumarji. There's one more question. On one hand, government wants to double farmers' income, whereas on the other hand, Department of Affairs wants pulses to remain cheap. The government should accept the fact that to increase farmers' income, the prices will rise.
So as I told you in my opening
Yeah.
remarks, it's a, we have to balance both. If you see the numbers, there are 13 crore farmers and 140 crore consumers. So, of course, farmers' income should be increased, and it should, of course, be targeted to be doubled in a stipulated time frame. But then you also have to see the overall economic conditions, the slowing of the growth due to COVID and other issues. So we need to have the prices under control also. So that is why these interventions are required, and sometimes there could be conflict in the two, but we try and resolve it through other means.
Thank you.
Only I can give this.
Lataji, I may add to what Sri Rohit Kumarji said.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting that India is a country which is the importer as well as exporter as well as producer as the largest consumer, which is not true with any other country. So what happens is for our USA, Canada, Australian friends, it is very easy to represent their farmers only. Whereas in India, the situation is that they have to take care of farmers, they have to take care of the consumers, they take care of the millers, producers, traders, everybody. So they really have a they have to go with a lot of balancing approach. So we can't have a one, this is only unique country. No other country has all these characteristics. Like we deal with a lot of Canadian, Australian friends. They always crib about it. Okay, fine. Our India has banned this, India for this, that. So for them, only their farmer is the only preference, choice. Whereas in India, we have a large set of consumers. So which is really India government and with the NAFED coming into picture for last few years. I've been in the industry for last 26 years. The fantastic work which NAFED is doing for last few years and the ministry and everybody, it's as good as any private organization is really working there, which is not true earlier. So this is nobody can really satisfy both. Like you can say prices should not go up or farmers' income should not be double. So there's a very nice mechanism which has been put on by way of the what do you call MSP and other promotion incentives. So those ways, I think, Lataji, this is one to my friend who has asked this question. I think we are unique in a way.
Next question is, what's the production number of USA Pulse for 2022? Mr. Khurana or Mr. Jeff? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, so the information that we provided this morning this evening was a little bit preliminary. We don't have all the yield data in. I think in a couple of weeks, we'll have some official numbers coming in, and we will be producing a newsletter with those vetted numbers and distributing all those numbers here in just a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff.
And just to add to what Jeff said, we'll keep the industry posted on those numbers. In case there are any specific queries, the industry can always get in touch with us directly and we'll be happy to answer those.
Sure. The next question is, how do we expect importers of green lentil in India, mainly from Canada, on account of expected food shortage this year? Mr. Rahul Chauhan.
In old times, what happened when the production of poor was affected, there was an increase of green lentils from Canada. Right now, the situation is different than last year. We have a good number of production. We have a good number of imports. So I don't think so. Green lentil will be imported too much in India. we can expect red lentils import to be increased from Canada and Australia.
Yeah, I would like to add something what Mr. Rahul has said. You see, we have seen in past that whenever there has been a shortage of tuber production, so we have seen that the demand is going towards the yellow lentils, particularly mostly in the part of southern India, where a lot of imports have taken place in Chennai port in past. So, and moreover, we have observed that India is a very price elastic market. So when the price of some pulses are going beyond certain level, the consumers, they tend to divert to other pulses. And the other pulse is the lentils, which they would prefer. So, and the lentil prices, as the world production this time is quite good in size, I believe that if the prices of tuber will go beyond certain level, then the demand will divert to yellow as well as the red lentils. So there is always a possibility of the import of yellow lentils in future. Because we all are, there is an expectation that the tuber production would be a little less this year than what is expected, what is required rather. Thank you.
Thank you, Bimalji. Do you see the next question? Do you see possibility that Myanmar will shift to reduce pulses and increase corn? Maybe Lalitji can answer this for us.
Yes, yes. The only reason is that in last couple of years, and I would say last 18 months, they have seen the fantastic opportunity for exports of corn, and a lot of farmers, a lot of even pulses traders, they have moved towards the corn trading and corn exports. Incidentally, for the corn markets are also nearby Indonesia, Malaysia, China, all those are neighboring countries. So again, their working capital is not stuck for longer period. See that the difference is that, as I said, from Myanmar to India, the advantage of export of pulses is that one, there is an immediate shipment, the voyage period is very short, and it is working good for the sub exporter as well as the international trader to realize their money faster. The working capital rotation is faster. So these are the one which giving advantage, and we have seen even the green mung beans. You know, you see the green mung beans also is becoming very popular this year. And a lot of green mung beans were exported to China from Myanmar at a fantastic price. So the pulses trader, as it is, the tour hole is the lowest number of the quantity of export is the lowest amount of these three top three pulses like black mate, which is Udad, green mung beans and tur. So this year is going to be the lowest, you know. So I think yes, they will move to other crops and the corn. Yeah, it's over.
You're not audible, sir.
No, it's done. I'm done.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah. Now, next question is, all prospectus have looked very strong on availability and production. Why are the prices not cooling down in processed pulses? Any prediction on timelines to settle the tur dal and urad dal prices? Sub hundreds.
So my friend, if you're keeping track of tour prices, they come up by almost 10% in last 1.5 months. Yes. So even same with Udad also. Udad has come down almost $100 from $1,100, and also close to 8 to 10% prices already come out in last 1 month. You see, the spikes which comes in between is not really fundamental spikes. These are being generated by the market players who got their own interest. Fundamentally, in just in 15 days, neither there is a flood which is demolished all the crop, nor there is a bumper production. So let us not really go by. I always tell my business friend that don't just go by these short-term spikes. Like it's like in a Bombay Stock Exchange, one particular share taking an upper circuit one day, lower circuit next day. Nothing happened. Nothing changed that way. So just go for a longer term. If you see, the price only come off, and Turol also prices come down. Urad also prices come down. But yes, the erratic rains which is happening even every day now, there was a withdrawal of monsoon expected, but it might further prolong. So these will keep on changing the scenario. But those short-term spikes or fall is not really should not be bothered by. Going forward, I feel, as I said, more production is going to be really good overseas. Of course, there is a 6 to 7% effect maybe in India, but these are these numbers can change later on also. So let us not make a view today that market price should go up or down. One should really follow the fundamentals. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we have Shri Rohit Kumar Singh ji today with us, if anybody has any questions, can please raise to him directly. Out of the panelists too. Till then, I'll move on to the next question. Red lentils price sharply inverted. Old crops versus new crops in Australia. There is a big gap. Canada, new crop, and Australia also. How do you see the prices evolutions? Is Canada adjusting soon? Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Myanmar exporters of pulses are dependent on India, but for corn, they have multiple markets.
Now, is it a question or a comment?
Okay. The Honorable Secretary of IPGA for closing comments. Over to you. Please unmute your line.
Hello, everyone. It was a wonderful evening with a lot of insights from our esteemed panelists during these especially uncertain times. I would like to start off by thanking our keynote speaker, Mr. Rohit Kumar Singh, Secretary, Department of Consumer Affairs, for his candid address and for staying back for the Q&A round as well. I'd also like to thank our other speakers and panelists. A special thanks to our co-hosts, the USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council, along with our advertisers, Srinath Agencies and Bharti Agri. Last but not the least, we would like to thank all our viewers, patrons who've logged on from everywhere in the world, different time zones, and they have helped make this session interactive and fruitful. Also, thank you to the IPGA team for seamlessly organizing this event. I invite you all to stay tuned to IPGA's website and social media handles for future IPGA events, including but not limited to our conclave in February 2023 in Mumbai. Wishing you a very good evening ahead and a great weekend ahead. Goodbye from all of us, signing off. Thank you.
Thanks, Krish. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. You may now disconnect your lines.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.